Welcome to this video. This is coverage for round 3 of the Tata Steel tournament in Wijk aan Zee, the Netherlands. And I need to tell you something right away. This will be a problematic video. The thing is, I worked all day and I only got to really work on this close to midnight. And well, I mean, it's great for the spectator, but bad for the commentator who's going to do a video on it. All games today had some interesting points or were playing really great. So, wow, I really don't know what to do. I couldn't really figure out that much about the games. Some of them were so complicated, I really had no idea what's going on. And even if you really extensively use a computer, it won't get you that close to something true about the games. Okay, I will just do what I can with those games. I hope you enjoy the coverage. It will definitely be, well, not perfect in some cases. I will probably overlook stuff or things, but you will get an impression what happened. I'm for sure. Let's get going. I'm starting with the game Dingley Ren against Bardujubava. Yeah, they both, well, Ding is on 50%. He lost against Caruana but scored a win against Hu Yifan, and Jubava really has a bad tournament. Yeah, he lost the first round, this somewhat, yeah, let's say stupid loss against Ivanchuk, and it didn't really go that well. He played the draw in round 2, pretty uneventful draw. Let's see what happened today. We got a somewhat uncommon opening. Yeah, bishop f5 here. This is a rare line of the old Indian with d6. This is not that bad, but it's fairly uncommon. Knight c3. And now black played the move h6. That all looks kind of weird. You probably would expect something like knight d7 or g6, but h6 is possible. Gives some square for the bishop. This has been played by some good players. It's not totally stupid. The general idea is knight d7 and e5 later, and then bishop e7 and so on. This is just trying to control e4. Yeah, Ding is going with g3. This is, I think, a good setup. He wants to put something on g2, the bishop, to ultimately control e4. A good idea. Black now went c6. No, that kind of fits into the general setup. You know, d5 was played. Yeah, and this is, I think, a good move. Yeah, the idea is maybe knight d4, which would attack the bishop and attack on c6. So, yeah, c6. I'm clicking on that square. Now it actually takes the click. Yeah, this is a weakness now. And if black does not react to that, like, well, let's say he does that, then this will be really, really awkward. We'll lose material, structure, whatnot. This is even material loss. So he has to react to it and played c5. And now we have a very, very strange form of Benoni. Yeah, where white castled, where somehow nothing's really well positioned. If you play g6 in this structure, this bishop does not have any squares to go to. Well, no decent square, g4, but easily h3 is possible. Yeah, to illustrate the point, let's say he does that, something like this. We'll lose the bishop. It's a very stupid line, but it might happen, yeah, this kind of thing. So black needs to take care of it, and he does so by radical means. He plays g5. When I first saw this, I was thinking, wow, this is a fun joke. It really looks like a terrible move. Yeah, weakening everything, and what exactly are you doing here? Where are you going to put your king now? Especially considering that white has h4 immediately. This was played. g4, knight e1. Yeah, as mentioned, I first thought this is totally ridiculous, to be honest, this g5 stuff. But if you look at it a little bit longer, and well, I didn't, as I mentioned, didn't have ages of time, but if you look at it a little bit longer, it has some points. If black now goes knight e5, which he didn't, and I think this was a big mistake, if he does that now, quickly trying to do this kind of setup, this knight on e5 is actually quite nicely placed. It cannot so easily be kicked away with f4, yeah, as then you take en passant. Yeah, I mean, just this is what I'm talking about. Making some sense of the g-pawn. So probably knight e5 was quite okay for black. It's nothing special for white maybe. I still have my doubts about the concept, but well, he went bishop g7 and now e4. Bishop had to draw back. One idea of g5 was this move that you can go back to h7, and now knight here to d3. And now we see the big issue. Black is not managing knight to e5 anymore. And if you don't get this in, how do you coordinate your position? A very tricky thing. He went a6, a4, queen c7, bishop e3. This is what happened. And the big problem is, well, I don't really see what black should do. If he castles short, his king will be in trouble. I mean, this is really not a great pawn configuration in front of your king, but at least he's got some pieces near it. The other problem is that you're also in bad shape on the queen side. Yeah, something like a5 and b4 is coming at a later stage, and those bishops, they don't do much. This is fairly awful for black, fairly awful. Jobava played also really quickly. This is I didn't know that. That's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's frustrated or anything. Well, what he did now is castling long, and after that, white is winning simply. I mean, this is winning. White cannot allow a draw from this position because, well, he's attacking on the queen side, and with the king over there, this is just very, very nice for white. Yeah, he went rook b1, intending to play b4. It's not rocket science. Black also cannot play a5 here, as I guess knight b5 and an attack against the a5 pawn will be a problem. I mean, other than that, I mean, you can also play b4 and open up the position. This is terrible. Maybe this was still a little bit more tenacious. I don't know. Knight b5 still looks terrible. Queen here. And maybe bishop. Yeah, okay, well, e4 hangs, so I don't know, maybe knight b5 is a little bit too quick, but he went e6, still playing instantly, after which b4 hit, and well, I don't see how you save this. It's simply far, far too much on the king. B takes e5, that's of course a strong move. Yeah, we're opening up the position as much as possible, and if black just recaptures here, white gets the bishop to f4. Terrible. Queen here. Knight d5 threatening knight e7 checkmate. Yeah, and in such a position, I mean, the thing is, this is opening up and white has all pieces in the attack. Bishop, bishop, the pawns, the rook, the knight, everything, and black has those kind of useless pieces. It's a win. This is a win. Yeah, this is what happened. e5, yeah, flashy move. It wasn't necessary. You also could have taken on d6. The idea is if black takes this, we will take here queen b8, and we are breaking through. Yeah, only here did Jobava take like 50 minutes. That's a really weird way to play. Okay, well, knight e5. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know what to say. This is like a complete slaughter, this game. White is just attacking with all pieces, and black is in disarray. d3 and queen b4, queen b2 here resigned. Yeah, if black takes the piece here, for example, then queen b6 hits, and it's made somewhere. Or this move can even take here for queen b7. I mean, when you have a position where all your pieces are attacking, well, it's very often just checkmate, and this is the case here. A really weird game by Jobava. I really don't know what happened there. Would be interesting to hear the press conference. Also, I couldn't do any of that. I have no information because it's really weird. You blitz out those stuff, which is, I mean, to call it strategically risky is really an understatement. You blitz out that stuff, and then all of a sudden, when the guy plays the totally obvious moves, you start to think, I mean, not quite sure what he expected. B takes c5 is nice, of course, but I mean, even if white is not doing that, he has a fantastic position. You're not going to survive that, even if I just play something simple. I don't think that this is playable really. But okay, let's go to the next game. Ivanchuk Van Veli is the next game that I'm going to look at. There's really no big sorting idea behind it. They're all all interesting. All games played today could have ended with a win, I think. There maybe one game there was no clear for one side, but it was a very fighting game. So a spectacular round. Ivanchuk, he goes with e4 again, and he has the second open Sicilian, just as he had in round 1. Ivanchuk plays all openings, and yeah, we know when he's sort of, well, everything's going for him, he can beat anybody on any given day. And we will see what he does in this game against Van Veli. Queen e2, a6, and long castles. Yeah, queen e2 feels a bit weird, but it seems to be a valid line. It's not very popular, but it's quite interesting. What white did is he quickly got in long castles, and the queen on e2 definitely has this important function to cover g4, so that with the queen on d2, you very often have to play f3 to prevent knight g4. While with the queen here, you prevent it just by the queen looking at g4. And not a bad setup. And now after bishop to d7, he went f4. So, typical Sicilian stuff. Rook c8, king b1. Yeah, here this game is actually something where I didn't analyze that much. I know that black was in trouble pretty quickly, but I'm not quite sure where it started, where the problems began. Well, queen c7, all this looks like standard stuff in the Sicilian. b5, g4, yeah. Well, what you can say is that those kind of very, very sharp lines where white is allowed to castle long and he can push g4, f4, and so on, some of those lines are really out of fashion nowadays, especially if you talk about setups where the bishop is coming to d7, like some lines of the Rouser and so on. The black is under some pressure, and I mean, maybe this is simply not that great a way to play this this opening, the Sicilian. I don't know. I mean, what I do know is, if you look at the position just now down the road, he went b4, yeah, knight a4, and now he played e5. Maybe e5 is a problem. I mean, after that it's very, very forced, and maybe, well, good for white. Yeah, probably e5 is not really on. Yeah, Ivanchuk now played it in a very, very, yeah, inspired way. He played g5. Yeah, attacking this knight. And, well, the thing is, now everything's going to be forced. You can absolutely not play the knight anywhere. Yeah, you cannot play knight g8. This is ridiculous. Yeah, white is jumping right in, knight to d5. I mean, knight g8 is no move. Can quickly discard that. If you jump to g4, there's stuff like this happening. Tempo. And then let's say queen somewhere. And what about h3 now? This is trapped. So the only thing that black can play on g5 is to move bishop to g4, which is what he played. And it looks really not that clear. Yeah, it's a funny situation here on the rook. White played queen to g2. Black took the rook. And, well, this is a rook. It's a complete rook. And now Ivanchuk doesn't even bother with taking the knight on f6. He just takes on a6. Wow. So this really made me pause for a moment. So white is a rook down, and he just takes the time to take this pawn on a6. Very nice. But what exactly is it that black should play? I really think that, I mean, what I looked at and what the computer is giving, white is better here. So he maybe should have avoided the c5 push. The problem is all kinds of things are hanging. One piece, a second piece, and the exchange. And if three things are hanging, it's very difficult to keep out of them. Normally not possible. Yeah, he went with knight d7, which is probably, relatively speaking, the best move. It's very difficult to play something else. I mean, also consider, if you, let's say, just to put one move out, if you move the rook, white will take here and has this threat. So you don't have the time to even save this bishop on d1. Moving the rook is completely out of the picture. And if you move the bishop, where would you go to? Maybe to h5. Again, this capture, it comes with a threat. So white will win material. He has to do knight d7. Yeah, and well, now Ivanchuk just took the bishop, and he's in exchange down for a pawn, but he has all the potential for great position. The rook is hanging, and well, look at the position that he's got. Rook a8, bishop b5, where else? Bishop e7, and now f5. Yeah, this is nice. Yeah, a huge space advantage. All black's pieces are sort of, well, they are pushed back, and yeah, this doesn't look good. Queen b7, and now c4, keeping this bishop anchored. Very nice move. If black takes here, white recaptures, and he all of a sudden has solved the issue of this slightly clumsy knight. And here, let's say after, I don't know, castles or something, white will play something to d5 at the right moment. Maybe cover the bishop, then go to d5. Or f6, it's also good. In the game, he castled immediately, not taking on c3, which is, I think, a good decision. But now f6. Tja, f6. If you take,
check,
you're really shortening. I mean, you're sort of suffering less, yeah. it's not a move. You have to go back, and then rook d6. Yeah, and this is really falling apart now. Yeah, and this is in fact leading to really tragic comic proportions. The kind of position that black now has. Yeah, he got attacked here on d7, and he couldn't even move the piece to a square where it is not taken. When g6, bishop d7 was possible, but white has all the time in the world. Black cannot move any piece. It's ridiculous in a way. h4, went h5, and just back with the queen. White has total control. Black has no move. Bishop c7, and white just took there. So we get this funny situation of 3 minor pieces against 2 rooks. But white has 2 pawns in addition, and well, look at those pieces, how they are positioned. This is fantastic. Yeah, the knight here covers d7, and those rooks, they are completely worthless. Amazing. Yeah, white is now just slowly crawling forwards, taking this pawn. Okay. Yeah, now you got 3 passes. Well, Isn't this an amazing position? How this is not a fun experience for black. And in fact, after knight d6, Van Vele decided to just resign the game. Yeah, amazing. Somewhere right out the opening, there must be the problem, really. I mean, this, I don't know. I'm not an expert on those lines. This is really not my territory, but if you ask me, I think this is uncomfortable for black already. If you look at Van Vele's time, he already had spent tons of time here, while Ivanchuk was playing rather quickly. Yeah, of course, black can also not take here because of this move. Yeah, just we come to this point. Yeah, it looked like an opening disaster in a way. Black had problems right off the bat and simply couldn't hold the position. The next game now is Giri Caruana, and I have to warn you that this is an exceedingly long game, and I'm not sure that I really understand what's going on. But I'd rather be honest about it than tell you some things that are not true. Yeah, they play a Queen's Gambit declined. Caruana playing this very solid line, which is part of his repertoire. He's very versatile. He's playing the Grunfeld, which looks super aggressive. Maybe on this level it's not, but at least it's kind of an open position that he's getting. And here plays this very conservative Queen's Gambit decline, but it's obviously a very good opening that can be recommended to play on all levels, really. Yeah, well, knight d7 in the bishop f4 line. Here the latest idea is knight e4, and Caruana plays that. Something that Giri definitely could have expected, simply because this was played in the recent game in the London Classic tournament between Arnott and Caruana. So this was kind of clear that this might come up the board. Rook c1, takes. This was the idea of knight e4. Black wants to trade off one pair of knights to get a little bit more room for his pieces. Or that's wrong. He wants to trade pieces so that he has less pieces crowding this little space that he has. Knight e4 also is interesting because it invites this move, but if you look at it, that's not leading to anything. Something like that. Yeah, this is something that Black very much welcomes. He's opening up the position, and if you look at it, Black is somewhat ahead in development. He has castled already, while White is 2 moves away from castling. Yeah, well, I think this is probably how it should be played, what Geary did here. But Black is definitely very solid. In this position here, Anand played c takes b6, by the way. After which Caruana played... Oh, I'm sorry, I got this wrong. He played b4. And after a5, a3, they agreed a relatively quick draw. But Black does not seem to be in any huge danger. One idea of this whole operation, if you look at this kind of structure, is that you want to play bishop a6 at some point. Yeah, getting this bishop out and therefore solving the eternal problem of the queen's gambit declined here with this e6 move. That you boxed in bishop. If you solve that problem, you're normally totally okay in the queen's gambit declined. Yeah, well, this was played in the game today. Gaining space. And now a3 to prevent bishop b4. a5 to have the bishop a6 option. That's all very logical. And this is in fact a general virtue of the queen's gambit declined. This is a fairly logical opening. Not everything's, but most things happen based on very sound classical values, and it's a good opening to explain to also somewhat weaker players. It's easier to explain than an opening like the Benoni, for example. Yeah, Black gets rid of his bad piece and has a fairly solid position. And now, after this, we get to an interesting moment here. I think that Caruana here without any big issues, could have played, I don't know, a normal move like rook to a8 or something. Getting the rook away from possible attacks. This is always an issue if there's unprotected piece on a6. Want to put it on a safe square. But he did something else. He played bishop to d6. This is an interesting move because it invites complications. And Geary is going for it. He plays knight to d7. An interesting decision. Yeah, now Caruana's intention is becoming clear. He does not want to play rook e8. This is also quite clear. Yeah, I mean, you don't invite a move like knight d7 to just play rook e8 here. Then you could have played rook a8 in the first place. Yeah. The point is he takes here and offers the exchange. Interesting concept, definitely playable. And Geary took up the challenge. He took on f8. So what was the whole idea of it? This was the idea. Black is taking on e3, a desperado sequence. The first thing to notice that if White now captures here, this is really a mistake after queen. Well, even queen h4 is a move. But let's just look at the general structure. We don't need to look at concrete lines. This is a situation where Black is definitely more comfortable. He has a knight for the rook, but it's a fantastic knight on e4. And Black's play is much easier. White does not really have anything to do with his rooks. And Black can just, he can do all kinds of things. Advancing slowly on the king side, trying to get to the c6 pawn. Well, I'm not saying that he's much better or anything, but it's quite uncomfortable for White. You don't have a constructive plan at all. If Black just, let's say, wants to draw in this position, he just sits there and does nothing. Yeah, and White will never, ever, ever go anywhere. So this is not a good way to win the exchange. What Geary did is better. He just put the knight back, and then after a bishop retreat, we have a different situation. Now the knight on e4 is not an eternal piece. It can be kicked away at the right moment with f3. Okay, this is not happening that quickly, but we got a knight trade here. and now have a different situation. Compared to the line that I showed before with the knight on e4, now black has a bishop instead of a knight, which is probably not that great a piece in the structure, but it has one very good post, and we will see that after some moves. Yeah, black is switching it to d6. You can ask, by the way, why is white pushing all his pawns? Well, he doesn't really have any other idea. He has to open up the position for the rooks, and the only way to do that is to push those pawns. So I think this was fine. Maybe you can debate about the timing, but in general this is the right way to go. And black still has this exchange down, but look at this. He's totally solid and coordinated. This is covered. Those two things are protecting each other. The bishop is protecting the pawn is protecting the bishop. It's a perfectly sound structure for black and will be very hard to break down. We come to some interesting moments later. Yeah, I mean, there you could do commentary on those moves, but it's really, I have to limit things at some point, and I have to get to sleep. Also, maybe trying to get to sleep before 3 a.m. here. So white is getting somewhere. He has opened up the h-file. He has doubled on the h-file. And here's an interesting moment. What about the move queen to h8? Yeah, not played by Giri, but he could have done that. He played this. The pawn was attacked. But if you go here, what about this endgame? Yeah, endgame because the queens will be traded now. I think it is just a draw, actually. Yeah, this kind of thing.
Check.
I don't think that white can win. One big problem is that you are not. It's a matter of understanding some concepts. White will not win with his rook alone. Yeah, because the weaknesses here, c7 and f7, they are very reliably protected. You don't really manage to set up a Zugzwang or something great here with the rook alone. It's a case where in order to make any headway, you need the king. But the king, on the other hand, is needed to protect the f4 pawn. White will probably not be able to ever give up the f4 pawn, as f4 drops g5 right after it. And if black gets those pawns going, he might play for a win. So, I mean, theoretically speaking, if those pawns were on light squares, not on f4, white could do something like this, yeah, trying to somehow enter on the queen side, yeah, like with f4, some breakthrough, yeah. But how is this going to work? Yeah, there is no way. It is simply a draw. Okay, white kept the rook on with rook c3. They continued for really a long while. That gets interesting soon. Oh wait, I missed something. There was one interesting moment. Let me look at it. I got confused here. Here, exactly here, on move 48, after king to g4. Here black has had a funny tactical idea that would have led to, yeah, probably to equality straight away. Not easy to see, however. e5 was possible. A funny tactic that the computer points out immediately, of course. The idea is that after the capture, black can take. The point is that this is even winning for black. This is a funny situation here on rook and king. And this is very difficult to see, yeah? This kind of, that this and this, there is queen before, a very tricky tactical motif. The best line after e5 is probably something like this, takes, and then just move the rook away. But here, black has gained from this because the king now is really open. Something like this is, for example, threatening. White here has to be careful to draw. I mean, he will, but it is not easy. Yeah, but Giri didn't do that. He played king a7. As mentioned, it's a very easy move to miss. And they continued for a long while. They traded f7 for c6, but black had this counterplay with the queen invading. And I only looked at this briefly and couldn't really come to a conclusion if there was any way for white maybe forward with this extra exchange at some point, maybe like f5, use the g-pawn. It really seems that black's play against the king is guaranteeing a draw. It's very difficult for white, and they continued for really for ages. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame. Maybe there was more to it, but I cannot really stay up all night to do this. They reached this endgame, and I think this is a pretty straightforward draw. White has no big idea to enter with the king. They played this on for 25 more moves, and I think there is nothing to do. Yeah, black has fortress type of position. He's even blocking the white king from entering, and he can, whenever this pawn is attacked, he can always cover it with the bishop from d4 or c5. I think it's a draw. They continued for a while. It's really a good indication. If Giri didn't find anything, then there is nothing, I guess. I mean, the comp is always giving like +1, but yeah, it's not helping. It's just a computer evaluation. Okay, so the next game I'm going to look at is Vashila Graf against Rajabov. They actually played the same line. Yeah, the same line. And c5. I really think that, by the way, if you want the theoretical opinion here, which is maybe not totally up to date, but my feeling always was that the only way to test black in this knight bd7 line here of the bishop f4, queen's gambit declined, the only way is c5. If this is nothing for white, the whole line is just equal. I mean, white has tried other things like a3 or stuff like that when black goes c5, and this kind of position here is really totally fine for black. This is a pretty solid isolated queen pawn position. Okay, c5 was played, and here Rajabov went knight h5. That's the older move, yeah, compared to the knight e4 move that Caruana played. When old does not mean bad, it's just the more explored way to play. Yeah, in this game I have to admit that I've looked a little bit at the later stages. It was a fairly standard position here. The only interesting moment comes now, where b5 was played. I'm not sure. Maybe this is even a known theoretical line. I mean, maybe, yeah. Vashila Graf hadn't spent even a minute on that. Yeah, probably it's all known. c6. Knight takes d5 is a funny move. White could try. But is this leading too much? I didn't analyze that. I just thought about it. Also, knight takes d5. The same motif happened in a recent game that I was watching live in one of my league matches. Yeah, maybe rook c8 here. Trying to unpin this knight. Something like this should be fine. Yeah, it's probably okay for black. Yeah, he went c6. Yeah, if you remember the World Championship match game what's this, game 3, Anand Carlsen, where Anand won, there were similar motifs. White is getting some substantial pressure here, and now it's an interesting decision with rook c1. He gives up 2 rooks for the queen, which is very often not a good idea, but here black's coordination is really not great. Yeah, this rook is really stupidly placed, always in some discoveries, and this f5. So this is probably an interesting position for white to play. Rook a8 was played, very sensible, and now f5. This was one way to justify this thing. Rook c6 and h4. Yeah, white has some pressure. And isn't this amazing? He's got more time on the clock than what he started the game with. Yeah, this is some extreme preparation. a4. And now he took like 20 minutes, yeah, after a4 to play h5. Yeah, it's an interesting position. I really don't know what's going on, to be honest. White is a pawn down, but he has definite pressure. What I do know is that a couple of moves later, here, bishop c5, queen g4. Here, again, black is a pawn up. That here he made a mistake. And, well, he has to do something like maybe like rook e8 or getting this a8 rook in the game. What he did is a mistake, a tactically inclined mistake, d4. This is not good because of this queen f3 or queen e4, what Vashida Graf played. This is very awkward now. We attack both rooks in a way. It's kind of a X-ray effect. And, well, you have to play a move that you really don't want to play. You have to go back to c8 with this rook. Yeah, if you do this, you're running into a really big fork. So he went back, and now knight c7. I don't know if you missed that. Hard to tell. It's not that difficult to see the move. The problem is now that, well, hangs and hangs. And, ooh, what are you playing? Yeah, he really just blundered into this position, let's say. And I don't know if black really is... if he really can save himself now. After this e6 pawn is dropping. Note that there's also an attack on the king coming with knight and queen. He played d3, takes d2. Very funny counter attack. But black wants to, he's not enthusiastic about it, but he has to get to a position with rook and bishop against the queen, and this is one way to do it. Yeah, and maybe here there's a critical situation. Vashtienau played queen to d3. I'm curious how long it took for that. Well, I played it instantly. It has a logic, yeah. I'm not saying that is a stupid move. The computer points out a funny possibility. It wants to play knight to c7 here, which looks weird, but it does make some sense. If you look at it, it's very similar, but now you've got the rook on c7, and white will get the pawn, definitely, but under quite favorable circumstances. Something like this is what the computer is giving us the best line. Queen b2. And here I think white should win. If we look at it compared to the game, yeah, white went here, takes, bishop here, queen here, bishop back, check. Queen takes, and king. Now this rook is somewhat supporting this this pawn, and it's tricky. It's really tricky. The pawn will come to a3. Maybe white can still do something, but this is the kind of thing where you really need more time to analyze it. I mean, wow. I don't know if he goes to a3. What did he do actually? He played queen c6. It's very difficult to stop this pawn, the a-pawn. I mean, white has a ton of checks. He can always draw, but how are you going to stop the pawn? I mean, maybe you can just... What did he do actually? Check. He gives this check, 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 check. They went to the draw. Okay, well, white can try something like that, stopping this pawn. But is this a winning attempt, or is this in fact more like a losing attempt? Yeah, well, losing is difficult, but yeah, well, you cannot really try to win with the queen here. Black probably can just shuffle with the king. If white now pushes his pawns, is this... Wait. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm really stupid here. Sorry. Black can even consider to push b5. Can he do that? Ah, queen c2. Oh, sorry.
Check.
Yo, this is why you have to go king h8 first. Yeah, king h8, let's say f4, and then b5, e6, b4. And this is the counter threat that probably keeps black in the game. g4, b3, b3, queen takes a2. I have this funny move. Wow, that's nice. Bishop takes, there's queen b8, check, queen a7, and wins. Yeah, here white wins, yeah. Getting this pawn. Wow. Yeah, there was still some interesting points, but they made a draw by perpetual. Probably the correct decision. I'm not blaming anyone here. It was probably the correct way to play. Okay, so a draw in this game, but maybe Vashi could have won somehow with knight c7. Really difficult. Next one, Zaric against Hu Yifan. Sorry, Šarić. It's difficult. A German person in English pronouncing a Croatian name, it's difficult. Zaric Hu Yifan. So we have e4, and we get a Sicilian, and Hu Yifan, she's playing g6. That's the hyper accelerated dragon. Yeah, not even the accelerated, the hyper accelerated dragon with an early g6. An interesting line. The idea is that you want basically what you want. You don't mind this thing, which is the accelerated dragon, but you probably mind that white can do this. So if you want to avoid it, you start with this move. Obviously bishop g5 now is kind of stupid. So d4 takes, and now knight takes, knight c6 transposes to what you want. The only drawback possibly is that white has queen takes d4. This is in fact what Šarić here played. I always thought that black should be okay in this line, but it's a theoretical debate, not a debate that is on the, let's say, cutting edge of theory, but it's something that is discussed over the years, how this position is to be evaluated. Yeah, white is making tons of queen moves, I know, but he also establishes a very strong pawn on e5. If black is not fighting this pawn quickly, white will establish this bishop f4, knight c3, long castles, and you don't know what to do against this pawn. The pawn is limiting your bishop on g7. You can put out some moves. This pawn is limiting this bishop, and it's also limiting the c8 bishop, as you cannot easily play the d pawn. It would give up material to play the pawn. But this is exactly what Hu Yifan did. It's not the only move in this position, but it's an interesting one. Takes and bishop f5, winning this tempo. So she's getting out the bishop, and here after queen e2 she castled. So really focusing on quick development and getting those bishop activated. Yeah, that's really okay. Long castles. Yeah, if white takes on e7, black is recapturing. And now you have a serious problem. You cannot castle anymore. Yeah, the queen is on d8, preventing you from castling. And black's development is fantastic. Yeah, this is not really a nice situation to be in. If white does something like that, a pretty obvious looking move, then knight ed5. And look at this, rook e8 is coming. Yeah, this is really terrible for white. So he had to castle long instead. She took, rook takes, queen c8. Yeah, and this is, I mean, it's probably difficult to grasp quickly. You would have to look at it in more detail. But black really has decent compensation for the pawn. Yeah, those two pieces are not playing. White is a little bit unharmonious, and black's bishops especially are very strong, f5 and g7. After a couple of moves that make a fairly standard impression, white comes up with the move a4, and this could have been punished really severely, and she played the first moves right. Takes, rook e4. Yeah, it looks weird to take on c3 with the bishop, but it's just good due to concrete lines. The rook here is attacking a4 and it's attacking f4. Wow, that doesn't look good. Bishop e3 was played. That's the best move, relatively speaking. And now, I mean, if you look at it afterwards, it looks like totally trivial, but she now could have taken the on a4. And black has a fantastic position. Yeah? I mean, you have equal material, and you have this white king in problems. White's pieces here are not playing, while black's pieces are all playing. The rook on a8 and the queen, yeah, they could be improved, but even the queen has some role on the c-file potentially, opposed the white king. This is really, really bad, this position. Black just has an attack, and it will be very difficult now for white to hold this position. Just to show you, I mean, if you want a computer evaluation, -3. Yeah, it's really, really bad. She didn't take on a4. It looks weird, I know, but she played queen f8. If you look at this move, it does not look too bad. It has points. If white now plays, let's say, rook back somewhere, then knight a4, for example, is a really good move. Yeah, intending the check and so on. The only problem is that, well, white has a good move, yeah, not rook d2 or some rubbish. He has this move, bishop c5. And after that, the situation is not clear at all. It really isn't. Yeah, there is discovered attacks by the rook. Yeah, let's say if black now takes.
Check.
This is the problem. Yeah, she gave this check on h6. Probably the best move. And we had a repetition here.
Check.
But ultimately she decided to continue, which is totally fine. Black has excellent compensation for the exchange. Okay, well, excellent is maybe a bit much, but really good compensation. You can very comfortably play this position. Sorry, play this position as black. Yeah, you have one pawn for the exchange. White has terrible structure and weaknesses all around. So it still feels very comfortable for black. However, after a6, queen back, here, yeah, this happened. They actually repeated moves. By the way, what was this queen a3 move? Why isn't he going to b3? Or was this an entry mistake or something? It looks weird that you would go to a3. Also, what about bishop g4 or bishop e4? This is actually what the computer points out. I didn't look at the end that much. I thought that, well, I just thought it's a repetition and that's it. But what is this move like? Bishop g4. I don't even understand the point. Besides taking, of course, and just winning another pawn. But maybe that is just the point. Yeah, and maybe rook d8 can be prepared. Prepared is the very word. Very weird way to pronounce it. Prepared. Rook d8. Immediately there's bishop d3. Okay. So this, and if now I move like bishop d3, we're going to take knight to e5. Ah, well, that's very strong. I understand. Yeah, that's very strong. So if queen a3 really was played, but it says so 2 times, then she had a chance there. A second opportunity in this game. Weird. Yeah, well, again, this was kind of interesting, but I couldn't really get to the bottom of it, and I probably wouldn't have managed that even with more time on my hands. So the next game, so this is a draw by repetition. Next game is Wesley So with white against Levon Aronian. Let's see. And we have an anti-Berlin, also known as the Scotch opening. Well, okay, Aronian is not playing the Berlin all the time, but he does. Yeah, Wesley So wants something else. He wants the Scotch opening. We have this and e5, the Mises variation. This is the principled way in the Scotch for white now for more than 20 years, since Kasparov unearthed it in the 1990 World Championship match. Yeah, that's a clear indication that I'm getting old, yeah. This match doesn't feel so long ago to me, but it is 25 years ago. Yeah, the Scotch opening. Queen e7, Queen e2. That is a necessary pair of moves to flick in, because black really has to hamper white's development here. If he goes knight d5 immediately, this is not a good choice. White then gets a quick castles in, and black always has a slight problem with this advanced pawn. It sort of limits him, and Queen e7 is introducing direct counterplay when white is too slow with his development. Knight d2, that's a sideline. c4 is the main move. Rook b8, c4, and knight f4. Funny enough, if my database is correct, this is already virgin territory. Never has been played on move 9. Not happening often. And we see that they spend some time. Aronian is playing quickly, but Wesley So is spending time. f4, okay, he has to keep the pawn. f6, and now a very interesting concept by So. He just takes on a7, rook b7, and he drops back to f2. The idea is that after the capture, which was played by Aronian, he's got f5. Yeah, this is a really crazy opening. Yeah? If you are a chess teacher like I am, it's very difficult to tell or explain people the rationale behind those moves. White is playing the queen all the time, and he's pushing pawns. He's not developing pieces. It's very difficult, in fact, to explain. But one way to put it is that when he decided to advance this pawn to e5, he really put some burden on himself. He has to make sure that this center is somehow, this issue has to be resolved. And it's very difficult to do with non-tactical means. He really has to play on this move-by-move basis and go from there. The thing is that after this and f5, white is in fact in a pretty decent shape, but it does not look very, it's not a very obvious way to play, of course. Queen f3, intending to play g3, g4, those kind of moves. Queen f7, g3, went back. Bishop e2, knight f6. So white is catching up a bit in development. And now he went with g4. Yeah, that's modern chess for you. It doesn't look very harmonious, but g4 has a concrete idea. g5, winning lots of space. Black also has a pretty weird configuration here. Yeah? The rook is funny on b7. The bishop is without a square. So this is definitely playable. d5, yeah, putting it in the center, this pawn, g5, and exactly here we come to a critical situation. In fact, after e4, queen h3, here we come to a critical situation. The game is in fact decided right here. I'm very curious how long Aronian took for the next move. He played it instantly. Yeah, so he had this. He made this decision when he played e4. Yeah. Clearly. Yeah, well, this is the thing then. 9 minutes he took for that. The thing is, after knight g8, he's just lost. After knight g8, the game is basically over. Even it takes a while, but white is completely winning. I will show you why shortly. The move that had to be played simply on the rationale that the other move is losing and the knight is attacked, so you have to move it. This move was still okay. The problem is always this move, bishop to h5. And after g6, only move, this bishop g6. It looks fatal, but once you come to this position, you will see that this is not a clear in any way position at all. White is an exchange up, really, it's 5 pawns both sides, but is an exchange up. But the situation, the whole position is completely out of balance. White's king is wide open, and g5 might fall. It's quite funny that that an engine is coming to a 0-0-0 evaluation after a while. But it's quite clear that white is not just an exchange up. This is a position where anything can happen, especially if two humans are playing. The thing is, when we go back to the game, he really only had this move. The move he played, knight to g8, is also answers by bishop g5, and now white is flat out winning. The reason is that after g6, the only move that keeps the queen, white takes with this pawn and just wins. Look at this.
Check.
Yeah, this is a completely forced line. White gets a new queen, rook takes, and now he can just count. White is a piece up. It's a complete piece up. Yeah, for, is there a pawn? No, it's just a piece for nothing. And it wouldn't be totally off to resign this position now, but Aronian continued. This is actually, I think, not a bad decision, because the position is not that easy for white to play. He's still not very well coordinated. At least the pieces that black has are somewhat in play, and white is still somewhat, yeah, he never ever bothered to move one of those. So it's understandable that he continues, but in order to keep this video at reasonable length, I can tell you that white was probably not playing the absolute best moves all the time, but it was always a win. Yeah, he keeps collecting stuff.
Check.
Even at one moment
Check.
we had a situation where
Check. Check.
where he was a rook up.
Check. Check.
Here there's an extra rook, but black had some play. In fact, he continued for
Check.
for ages
Check.
until they get here, and here
Check.
it gets relatively easy from a tactical point, from a technical point of view. After this rook h4 move, you pin this pawn, and when the last pawn is off the board, you will really win this quickly without any hassle. So a win for Wesley So here against Aronian. Very nice win. However, it was all due to one big slip by Aronian when he, here we can really boil it down to that point. Knight d7 would have led to a completely messy, unclear game with really unclear consequences. While knight g8 just lost, flat out lost the game. Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, we have all games but the World Champions games, right? Yeah. So Wojciech Carlsen, the #1 Polish player against the world champion. Also take note that Wojciech is the main second of Vichy Anand nowadays. So they, yeah, it's a little bit of a small continuation of the World Championship match if you want. Yeah, Wojciech plays d4. He's normally a d4 player. And Carlsen plays d6. So he sticks to this setup that he played against Giri in round 1. Maybe he's really serious with this and it wasn't just a one-off kind of thing. c4 by Wojciech. And what is Carlsen playing now? He plays f5. Interesting. What he's doing is he transposes to the Leningrad Dutch variation in a somewhat interesting move order. This move order actually keeps the knight back on g8 and allows for a quick bishop g7. We'll see that this is happening. Sometimes this can be a point so that the knight can still be developed to h6 or maybe not developed at all so quickly. Yeah, Wojciech plays an interesting move. Now he plays the move b4. Yeah, this is looking very early, but the move b4 nowadays is considered to be a good recipe against the Leningrad Dutch. It can be played in various move orders, and it is a good idea, I think, especially here, to play it really, really quickly to have some counterpart, yeah, for this bishop on g7. What white is doing, he quickly sets up control over e5, and This is a good thing, that you try to hinder black from pushing the pawn to e5. It's a dream scenario for every Leningrad Dutch player. Want e5 and f5, this pawn duo. Note that this b4 move is really not comparable to other quick b4 pushes, as black is committed to a fianchetto. So that's not the same thing as the Sokolsky opening, the orangutan. Yeah. Carlsen now played the move a5. Okay, a5, b5 played, and now a4 played. This is, I mean, we are talking about a position here that basically is unknown. Yeah, this is actually really great. Yeah, after move 5 or 6, they are just playing chess for once. Yeah, not just reproducing some computer stuff. And it's interesting. Now this a4 move, and I'm kind of divided about it. This is not an uncommon motif in this type of position, but very often what black is doing is, I can show you what he's getting at. White is now playing e3. Interesting decision. He's not fianchettoing anymore. I like the idea. I can show you what black is after with this a-pawn move. If we put all this out, queen c2, queen c7, knight c3. And now exactly black plays a3. This is the idea. Yeah, you want to disturb white with his development. However, the questionable thing is it any good? It takes time. You push the a-pawn with like a5, a4, a3. Yeah, and at the end, this pawn is vulnerable in a way to rook b1, rook b3. And in the game, well, this was played, yeah, rook b1, knight d7, rook b1. And in this position, you see that you have a hard time to keep the pawn. And really, once this pawn drops, where is the brilliant compensation for black? Yeah, I understand that he can play e5 at one point, but well, e5 alone is not leading to a quick mate or anything. Yeah, Carlsen plays it in an interesting way. He plays the move knight to e4. Yeah, just putting the knight in the center of the board. And after the capture, here Wojciech had to be very careful. He absolutely should not take on e4. This was a poison pawn. He played knight d2, which is much better. If he takes, there is this funny tactical trick. Yeah, based on this idea. Yeah, if white takes, the rook drops. Knight d2 is much better. Knight f6 and rook b3, going after the pawn. If white takes on e4, you have the same idea as before. But rook b3, this is the problem all along. If you push the a-pawn all the way to a3, it will get lost. What Carlsen gets for the pawn is he gets some pieces near white's king. We see that. Bishop f5, rook takes, and h5. But to be perfectly honest, this looks like going for swindling chances. It doesn't feel like black should have enough for a pawn, really. It sort of, this is born out of necessity. Yeah? You had to do this after you somehow lost this pawn in the process on a3. So this wasn't really a great opening result for the world champion. Maybe this push of the a-pawn really was wrong. I don't think he was worse before. I mean, this looks fairly normal, a move like knight f6 now or anything. Yeah, let's come to that. It's not like white is winning straight very easily or anything, but it's definitely not a position that he would ever want to have on the board again with black. So rook takes was played. And now the move a3, yeah, putting this pawn out of harm's way, that the queen is not needed to protect it. I think this is all okay. Now h4, clear. Black has to do something. It cannot just sit around. An interesting decision now for white, and a decision that is very difficult, I feel. I mean, let's say if I would be in white's shoes, and I would be pretty confident that I'm clearly better here. But I would really think very hard, do I want to allow h3 for black, or do I want to play h3 myself? An interesting comparison to make. If you go h3, an issue can be that, of course, there are possible sacrifices there, like queen c8 and then, well, taking on h3. On the other hand, if this sacrifice is not coming, it's not quite clear what black's idea is. Very difficult to get anything against the king here. He played this and went for this position. And here you always feel like whenever queen g2 hits, well, that's it. Yeah, but very difficult to really get the queen near the king. So I'm undecided. Maybe both setups are of about equal value. Queen c8, angling for that. You want to get rid of the light squared bishops to better infiltrate on those squares. Rook e1. Yeah, a4 immediately also was possible. Rook e1 is not really, I mean, it has some points. We will see it later, but a4 was possible. I think here the computer points out the move knight to h7, which is of course totally normal in this position. And Carlsen plays it one move later, but he loses a bit of time. Maybe knight h7 immediately was more interesting. There are some really remarkable lines where black is really getting some compensation. It's quite interesting. If we look at this, for example, if white really tries to promote the pawn, yeah, a very logical sequence, then really black gets some attack going. Yeah, this is a possibility. Just putting much pressure on f2, and there are even other ideas now. Like for example, yeah, rook f8 is a real problem, but I think white probably has to play the f pawn. Yeah, I mean something like this.
Check.
I don't know. Yeah, threatening maybe even to take on h2.
Check. 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 Check.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't the best possible way for white to play. But yeah, you get the idea. There is some attack. Knight h7 was probably the best possible way to set problems. The way it was in the game, it is very similar, but in the process with rook b8 and stuff, Carlsen has somehow lost a move, so that queen to d1 was able here to cover the g4 square, so that bishop g4 is not even coming. Yeah, and here he played the move c5. That is good, yeah, doing something with the bishop. Now Wojciech played rook to b6. Yeah, maybe that wasn't the best move, but it's obviously a very complicated position. Here Carlsen, I think, still, if he continues with a waiting move, the computer suggested actually king h7, yeah, which is in a way a move that passes white the right to move, but it also does some good things. It covers g6, it gets out of possible checks on this diagonal, whatever. The king is a little bit better there. In fact, white has some really nice opportunities now to get himself into trouble. I was really surprised. Let's say a5, normal looking move. Takes, e3. This is a big point. If white takes, queen e6, and believe it or not, black wins. Yeah, this is all of a sudden completely turning. This is almost a mate, yeah, when it comes, and you cannot really protect it like that. Really problematic. So king h7, a5 takes. What about bishop takes? Takes, and this is hanging. Yeah, well, a5 is not the move against king h7, but it is not so easy for white to play this position. Yeah, the computer is suggesting after king h7, is suggesting rather non-intuitive moves like knight to b1. I mean, I don't really think that a human player is going for that kind of move. I'm really struggling with the idea. I mean, maybe you're intending to do this, and after bishop takes, yeah, okay, what you do is, when e3 comes at some point, you can actually do this. The knight is not attacked on d2. That's maybe the point. But knight b1, I mean, no, it's not going to be played. King h7 was still putting up a big fight. But what Carlsen is doing now, he played queen to e6. At first sight, to be honest, it looks totally ridiculous because g4, whoops, and the piece is lost. It's not that easy. This was played, and white is winning after that. At least the position is winning. He definitely didn't overlook the g4. What he did is he must have made some calculation error in what is coming now. He took on d4. Recaptures, yeah. Note that if white does that, it was possible, maybe actually. G takes. Yeah, it's leading to the same position actually as in the game. He took there, and the bishop is still trapped. He took now on f5. Yeah, he must have miscalculated somewhere around here. Black is really a complete piece down, and I'm not quite sure what his miscalculation was. As mentioned, I didn't see a press conference or anything. Yeah, knight f1, that's a good move. White, it seems, can also go for that, but this is the kind of position where the computer is saying, well, I'm winning easily, no problem whatsoever. But a human player will still be very scared here. Yeah? The king here, just this and mate, and well, it's not easy probably to coordinate for white. Even if the computer says it's a totally easy win, but believe me, for a human it's not easy. I think what Wojciech did is fine. He played knight f1.
Check.
And went for this position. He's a complete piece up. That's not even like some pawns for black. And he just has to be precise and not bungle it up. Yeah, he's coordinating. He's giving away the a pawn, but he wants to coordinate his position. Yeah, note that they were in time trouble. So yeah, very nice move, by the way. Now queen f4. This was the move 40 by Wojciech. Very nice move. Yeah, putting the queen en prise, but the capture here leads to a queen trade, which is of course very welcome by white. Yeah, so Carlsen couldn't take. Sorry, he couldn't take. He actually did take because there is no other move. Where do you put the queen? Yeah, sorry, this was a brain slip. Yeah, he did take. There is no other move. Yeah, I mean you can go here, but that's not helping. Yeah, and it happened that the queens were traded. He continued a little bit. At first I thought, well, this is kind of cheeky to play on with the piece down, but I admit that there is some point to it. Black has a pawn, and those two pawns, they are still vulnerable. So it is not stupid to try to continue, especially with the reduced pawn count. White only has 3 pawns. If he gives away 1 pawn somehow, it would be very tricky. But Wojciech didn't do anything stupid. He just continued with good simple moves, keeps everything together, everything's protected. Yeah, and now ultimately he got to this point where he will pick up the h3 pawn. So Magnus Carlsen resigned this game. Yeah, not a good tournament so far for the world champion. He played 2 draws and lost this game now. And the 2 draws weren't especially inspiring, let's say. Well, it's nothing special, let's say. And this was really not a great game, to be perfectly frank. He played this interesting opening, and I like that he is doing those things, experimenting a bit, doing some other openings that he did before. Well, it should be really the case that there should be more experimentation outside of those World Championship matches, trying out interesting new ideas. But it will invariably happen that you fall on your face once in a while if you do interesting new things. Here it feels like this a pawn push wasn't that great, but yeah, I'm kind of cautious there. But it felt to me that when you push the pawn all the way here, it wins some time. Okay, yeah, that's all nice, but this is ultimately a pawn sack. Yeah, this pawn is just dropping, and I don't really see that you have any great compensation for that, as white has a very solid position. So maybe this a5, then a4, a3 was a mistimed plan. He definitely had some chances afterwards, but there was nothing like clear cut. He never had, I think, full compensation for the pawn. But maybe if you analyze it in more detail, you will find something. But my hunch is, my gut feeling is that white really was a pawn up, and with precise play should get out of this. And well, this was a good game by Wojciech, yeah, and he had a really interesting tournament so far. If you think about it, he could have won against Wesley So with black, a really up and down struggle, and today this game, really interesting. So I hope you enjoyed the coverage. It is a long video, but this was just so much content. I think you could easily do 30-40 minutes per game of one of some of those. So this is the good thing about this tournament. There are many games played, and very often they're interesting. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching.